What's up, everyone?
How's it going?
We're back.
In the social media world out there.
Yeah, we just posted our first video of this series a couple days ago. By the time we post this, we actually recorded that video in May, and now it's September. So there's a pretty big gap in between this idea starting and us actually doing it. But we're really excited about where this is gonna go.
Super excited.
Yeah.
What gave us the idea was Andy and I, we usually talk about big ideas and like futuristic kind of thinking and things of like philosophical nature or like psychology, things that help the entrepreneur apply life skills and really try to personally develop in the world. So we're constantly like consuming different content out there on YouTube and Instagram, social media, whatever it may be, about these topic areas. And we really want to be able to be analytical in our thinking and see these different perspectives out there and try to digest them in a way that looks at them from a different angle, but at the same time understanding where they're coming from with that video.
Yeah, and I mean, you can see that pretty well in that first video we did. I know it's kind of long, but the length was necessary because a lot of it was really showing you the process Kyle and I went through to come up with this idea in the first place. Throughout the video, we are reacting to Gary Vee's video, but we're also talking about why this idea would be impactful in the long run. So
yeah, and at heart, we're documentary filmmakers, and the process of filming and documenting our journey throughout this whole process of becoming entrepreneurs to, who knows, maybe in the long run we'll like quote unquote make it in like society's perspective. But the journey of being able to have these ideas, put them on paper, and then actually execute on them. And in that first video we did was just pretty standard. We come up with an idea, we're brainstorming, and then we're like, oh shit, we can actually do this. Let's do it. And then right on the spot we do it and we film it and we document the process. And so as a way of like giving back to the community, to this social network that we're creating, this culture, I think it's really helpful to be able to see other people's progress and be able to see them go from this place where they didn't know something at first and then going to the point of mastering that skill or that technique or whatever it may be that you're trying to develop in yourself.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's something I actually clipped out of the first video. But there was a point where I stopped Kyle and I said, I just want to make a note that I think we're fucking up not having a mic on the table. I didn't put it in there just because it kind of led into a really long tangent that we just didn't want the video to be like 2 hours long.
Which happens a lot with us.
Yeah, so I had to cut out there was a lot of good talk, but I think it's, maybe for another time. But if you didn't get a chance to and you're watching this one now because it's a shorter video and you have some time, go check out that other one. I personally have watched it a couple times and not being like narcissistic, but I thought there was really good value. And I think that particular conversation can continue. So I would love if anyone who is listening to this one goes back, listens to that, write a comment, something that you thought was insightful or something that you want to add to that conversation, because that's the whole point. We really want to like keep these conversations going on all these different topics.
Yeah, if anyone has insight, definitely have your input. It's all welcomed, good, bad, ugly, whatever it may be. And that's what this is all about, getting everyone's take on all of this and us growing together as like entrepreneurs or like personal developers, whatever it may be. And also just like if anyone wants to watch this out of entertainment too, to just support us, that's cool too,
Yeah. So this week, Kyle and we posted the first video and we just said, screw it, let's do this on a weekly basis, at least to start. And so we discussed today and we wanted to cover some type of video made by Jordan Peterson. So Kyle listens to Jordan Peterson a lot, so I'll let him kind of tell everyone who Jordan Peterson is and kind of a little background for anyone who's not familiar, and then we can get into the reaction.
Jordan Peterson, he is a professor at University of Toronto. He is a psychologist, PhD, who talks about things of personal development nature, as well as talks about religion and different philosophical studies, such as Nietzsche, Aristotle, Socrates. He tries to gear it towards like Western philosophical thinkers, and he's trying to do it in a way that can be applied in our modern day, can actually help someone go through these hard times. Our society is definitely changing. It's becoming modernized. The digital age is here now, and with that comes a lot of opportunities. And I think what he's trying to do is just show people that there's another way. The standard education that we have out right now, it's not successful in his eyes of allowing someone to personally develop. And I think he's just trying to give people like another perspective on that matter, showing people that, yeah, there is a way and you can do it. Everyone is having these opportunities to do it, and it's definitely motivational, inspirational, gets you thinking, and that's why I like it. I'm on this journey with Andy, and we're entrepreneurs, and there's times where we feel almost as if a little lost or just like down,
lost.
You know. There's bouts of like depression. I don't want to say like not
crippling depression.
Not crippling depression, but you know, there's times where it gets sad. There's exciting times and everything in between. And having Jordan Peterson as a guide or someone to go to through the comfort of your home and being able to watch what he has to say is just incredible. And really, yeah, I think we should all take advantage of that.
Yeah, and I mean, he's just one of many influential people that everyone has the ability to have access to if you have a phone or access to a computer. So I guess if anything, what you take away is just open up the realization of the resources around you and
hell yeah, that's
start
what it's
listening.
all about. Yeah,
start
for sure
taking in it's free resources, you know. Mm-hmm. So
even if you're not an entrepreneur, even if it's like something you just want to watch to enjoy or to be able to apply in your daily life, as far as like relationships or like just that daily motivation that you need, whatever problems that you're having in life, Jordan Peterson is a good person to go to. Obviously, there's a lot of controversy with the stuff that he's saying because it is like very prolific and it can come across wrong in a wrong way. But at the very end, it's like he's a free person to access. It's on YouTube, and it might help you think in a different way, that differently to like mainstream media.
Yeah, I think that's well said. All right, so we're going to get into this one. So this video is titled, How Do You Help Someone Who's Lost? And it's a repurposed video that Jordan Peterson had made talking about that topic. Someone just made a lyric video, if you will. So Kyle and I are going to start watching this.
So it came out September 25th. What day is it today?
It's the 25th.
It
literally
25th.
came. This video resurfaced 11 hours ago. So perfect. We
haven't even watched it yet.
Yeah, I think one big thing that we want to do is react to videos that are relevant to, like, meaning they just came out, so that if people are watching that video because it just came out, we will also be showing up with our reaction. So it'll be good timing as opposed to maybe reacting to something that came out 5 years ago. We're going to get right into it.
The question to some degree is, how do you help someone that's lost? And the answer to that is, if they aren't willing to not be lost, you cannot help them. And I would also say that as a clinician. You see, I mean, it's a statement that's informed, I would say, by my mythological knowledge, but also by straight clinical wisdom, not mine particularly. I mean, one of the things that Carl Rogers pointed out was that there were necessary preconditions for entering into a therapeutic relationship. And that would be really any relationship where the mutual flourishing of the two people involved was the paramount goal. And one of the preconditions was that both people had to want that to happen. And Rogers believed he didn't know how to get the horse to drink once you had brought it to the water. And I've thought about that a lot, because when people are really lost, sometimes they're so lost that they can't be found. And I think the only thing that you can do in a situation like that is get your life together and manifest the reality of an alternative mode of being. That's what you've got. And so that's the only way I know of to solve an intractable problem.
Okay. So as an aside, I'm coming from the perspective, I have a background in mental health and wellness. I'm a registered nurse, and this is what I do for a living outside of Boho Hobo. So in my 9 to 5, so to speak, I'm the first person that they see when they come into the clinic. It's an outpatient clinic where we treat mental health and substance abuse patients, and we give them treatment, whether it's medication, counseling, psychotherapy, whatever it may be. So I just wanted to add that aside, just so you guys have some background on me, and approaching this video might be, I don't know, just having that background knowledge. I'll be able to bring more to the conversation.
Yeah, and my background is not even remotely close to that, but I guess for the sake of letting the viewers kind of get to know us a little bit better, my 9 to 5, I'm an SEO specialist at a digital marketing agency, so my insights kind of come from more of that business mindset, and trying to, I don't know, people in the office, I don't know. So like my input's going to come from a different place, but I think overall, like, we're all free to have our opinions anyways. So the reason I stopped at that point is because I was starting to remember a course that Kyle and I took. We took a life coaching course last summer that really kind of started us down this personal development route harder than maybe we were doing subconsciously beforehand. And he said something that was really profound to me, and it really just piggybacked off of that learning. And that was, the person who's trying to help someone who's lost can't help that person unless they're willing to be helped. For example, like, he couldn't figure out how to get the horse to drink the water once he brought them to the water.
This is what the guy from the life coaching video was talking about.
And like, Jordan Peterson is just saying that as a professional
clinician,
right? You know? Yeah. So
training.
I just, like, that to me, I was just like, damn, yes, this is speaking to me. I'm not really questioning that, because I think that's very true. I've dealt with, maybe I wasn't trying to help someone change their life, but I've seen it at times where you can try so hard to make someone be or see things differently, but at the end of the day, if they're not willing to see things or do things differently, you can't do anything.
Yeah, 100% agree. You can't force anyone to do anything in life. They have to do it on their own. As counselors, you kind of guide them along and just be there as a supporting, listening ear. But at the end of the day, people have to find their answers on their own. Oh, he was talking about Carl Rogers. So Carl Rogers, he's a humanistic theorist of psychology, and actually studied a lot about, not him specifically, but some techniques that piggybacked off of his teachings, and that's all about like motivational interviewing. So at the end of this video, if you want to Google that, definitely, it changed my life. It opened my eyes to a whole different way of communicating to people. But basically, motivational interviewing is all about helping someone resolve ambivalence in their life. So ambivalence may come in forms of, like, if they're trying to stop substance abuse and they're on the fence of like, oh, should I do it? Should I not do it? I have all these reasons why I should, reasons why I shouldn't. And motivational interviewing is all about counseling in a way that actively listens to the client that you're working with, and helps them see both sides of the situation and help them come to truth as far as like what their life is entailing, what it's bringing, and trying to formulate a decision in the most truthful, authentic way possible. In substance abuse treatment, it is kind of geared towards helping that patient get off of the substance. That's kind of a given, but it could work in other situations. Like if, let's say, someone's trying to change to a vegan lifestyle and they're on the fence about it, and they need someone to like listen to them. And a lot of the times, we talk about this a lot, is like if someone is very confused or in their head, talking it out helps them sort out all of that information that's going on. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you have any insight into that as far as like your journey, your process when you were doing the life coaching, and like you and I would always talk about it. Yeah,
so I guess the situation I was coming out of when we started this personal development journey, I was coming close to a year out of a pretty toxic breakup relationship that was kind of this off and on.
You want to talk about?
I mean, I'm not going to get into detail, but basically, I just want to give the premise of like where I was at in my life and why it was so helpful. And basically, I was at this point where I kept slipping into this saying I was going to stop caring or doing anything about it and move on. And then I would slip back into being like consumed by that situation. And it was just like this revolving door. And then when we started the personal development, I started these teachings, and then Kyle and I would talk a lot, and it really started making me personally not look to other people for answers, but look into myself to realize that like I deserved to be not only treated better, but to also live my life without drama and unnecessary things that I couldn't control, and really focus on what I could control, which is, you know, what Kyle and I are doing, my job. I just graduated college. There's a lot of things that I could control in that moment, and I was being consumed by something I couldn't control. So
I think that brings up a good topic as far as like counseling in general. One big thing that you're not supposed to do in counseling is give people advice and help. And as a counselor, all you're really doing is listening to them and helping them find the answers, and almost like giving themselves advice. So in that situation, like if let's say I was life coaching Andy, I wouldn't just be like, oh, this is what you should do, and trying to force it down his throat. And related back to the Jordan Peterson video of what he's talking about, you can't force someone who doesn't even want the change to happen. They have to come to that change on their own, and they have to want it. They have to be, and that's a good thing about like life coaching or counseling, is it creates that self-worth, that internal motivation that you need to get through whatever decision that what path you decide to go on.
Yeah, and I guess like before we continue, the overarching theme that I really learned, or I guess maybe one of the most important foundational things that you should know if you're interested in getting life coached or learning about life coaching or whatever, is that not only does that person need to be ready, but they also need to be able to actually accept what's going on, like the things that are being said to them in reflection of what they're saying to that person.
You're talking about like the stuff that from the relationship, or
no,
like,
just anything that they're like trying to get life coached on, whether it's they want to start their own business and they don't know how, like they're trying to figure that out, or get out of a relationship. Like you may be ready to change things, but if you're not willing to accept the things that are being said, right? Like when you talk to that person, they're reflecting back to you.
Accept the things that the life coach is giving you, or accept the things that you're telling yourself?
The life coach is essentially rewording and reflecting back what you're saying to them. So if you're not able to accept what you're saying in a reflection, then
it's just going to bounce.
Right. It's like talking to a brick wall in that sense, if you're not willing to accept what you're saying as truth. And so that's like a big thing. It's like if there's too much friction, that person who's trying to life coach you is probably going to tell you that now's not the time. So
you have to first come to acceptance, honestly.
Yeah. So I really think like a big thing is like self-awareness before coming in, understanding who you are, where you're at, the situation you're in, and then understanding that it's not going to always be like, you're not always going to hear the things you want to hear in that situation. Yeah. Like, cause that person's going to reflect it in a manner that's going to make you think deeply about what you just said. And so you're going to start questioning a lot of things going on in your life. So I guess like just more as like a disclaimer, expect to be put in almost like an uncomfortable position with your own self.
Oh, 100%. Personal development is not a fun, it can be a fun ride at points, but there's also points of it that it's uncomfortable. And I like to think that when things are stressful, to a certain extent, that's when you're growing. That's when you're getting stronger. Like if you think about it, if you go to the gym and you work out, that's not really a fun thing to do at all times. It's strenuous, it takes energy, it takes time and effort. But after you've been working out for a good 6 months, you're going to see the gains. It's all about the gains.
Yeah, literally. So
but you also have to position yourself in a therapeutic environment with your counselor or life coach, so it's not like an unhealthy push. So comparatively to the working out analogy, you don't want a personal trainer that is telling you to lift 500 pounds when you go to the gym if you can only lift 200. So it's knowing yourself, having self-awareness, and also setting your boundaries as far as like your limits and what you can handle.
Yeah. And this doesn't even need to be in the situation where you're like legitimately in like this official, you're being life coach. This could even just be someone who's maybe trying to help someone in their life that is in need of reevaluating. Understand that you're not there to tell them what to do with their life. You're just there to help them find the way. And I think understanding that, even if you don't go take a course on how to do it, just keep some of these themes in mind.
Don't cast pearls before swine. And what that means is, if you're trying to help and it doesn't work, then stop helping. It's not helping, right? It may be just wasting your time. It might be making things worse. If you're offering something and it's not taken, then perhaps you should be offering it somewhere else. And sometimes, if you offer a hand and the person won't take it, you have to stop offering the hand. And then what you do is you go off and you have your life. And sometimes that means in people's lives, for example, that they have to leave their family members behind. Sometimes the thing you do is walk away because there's no other solution. And if you are trapped in pathological relationships and you see no way out of them, if someone who is sinking has their hands around your neck and is pulling you down, you're not obligated to drown with them. There's a rule too if you're a lifeguard. Some of you have had lifeguard training. How do you approach someone who's drowning and panicking in the water? Feet out, right, like this. It's like, I'll save you, but that doesn't mean you get to drown me while I'm doing it. And if it's you drown or both of us drown, it's you drown. And that's wisdom. That's not cruelty, right? So, yeah.
We were talking about this, like the idea of like if you're in a toxic relationship, that the only way that the other person, and if let's say 100% that the other person is toxic, the only way that the other person can get out of that toxicity is in this sense to leave. And that's a hard thing to say when, you love that person or you're in a relationship that you feel like it's the world to you. And at the same time, it's like by leaving them, you almost feel as if you're not helping them. In the long run, you are.
Well, maybe by letting them figure it out on their own after they realize that even the people who cared the deepest about them leave, that they have to look inward if they ever want to change. And if they don't, then there's nothing that will happen, At the end of the day, you have to take responsibility for your own life because you are the only one who is living your life. And so, for example, something that really hit home with me about what he's alluding to, or the theme of that particular section of the video, is that there is plenty of times that I'm sure people watching this can relate to, where someone in their life is going through something toxic or they've been living a very toxic life, and they cling on to the people who are willing to listen to their issues and be there for them, to almost be, in a sense, they subconsciously are telling you or thinking in their head that you are almost like a counselor to them. Whether or not you want to be or not, that's not the case. If you keep listening and helping them, then you are becoming this role in their life. And people will cling on to that, especially in toxic, low places in their life. They will cling on to anything that will make them feel better about what's going on. And no one should have to accept that.
And that's creating a lot of codependency.
Yeah, and that's just especially if you're in a relationship with that person, that just creates
the whole idea of
a worse situation.
The whole idea of enabling someone is when you take someone who's in that helper role and helping the person who's quote unquote lost, and it can breed this dependency between the two people, and it could actually be enabling that feeling of being lost or that dependability sevenfold as that relationship keeps growing.
Yeah, and I mean, you could even be in a situation where you're the caregiver in this scenario and you start falling for this person because you feel that you're making ground or that you're going to help this person change. And a lot of the times, if that codependency develops and the toxicity is just getting worse in a different way, it's hard to know when to say enough is enough when nothing's changing. You know, like you become dependent on being there for them. They're dependent on you to listen to all the constant issues that keep coming up. And then it's just, again, a revolving door of issues that...
And it's easy for us to say. We could sit here and just be like, oh, this is what you should do. And at the same time, we're understanding of how difficult, if you're in that situation, it can be. So the question is, what do you do? And maybe through this video with Jordan Peterson, we'll be able to find more information as far as what should be done.
I think even in that situation, though, this whole idea of looking inward and taking control and responsibility of your life goes for both people in that situation. Because, like,
it's a balance, I think.
It's hard because, like, one person is probably not living as much of a lost, toxic life than the other person. But by falling into this caregiver role that you maybe didn't even realize you're falling into, you're now falling into a lost state where without that person, you're lost.
Mm-hmm. And some people may lend themselves to the personality set where they do want to be a helper role because they feel like they're needed or valuable. But at the same time, it's like it's fucking them up, maybe.
Let's just say that the people who are in that lost state, who are letting people assume the role of caregiver for them, are also just as easily able to shun you from their life and find someone else to take that role when maybe they feel like you're not living up to what they want you to be or whatever. Like, so it just kind of lends yourself to a very toxic, like, reality. So,
and like if you have zero understanding of human psychology or philosophy, then this might be news to you. And you might not even be self-aware with the situation that you are in. And that's another tough thing.
I guess it just really, again, comes down to, like, look inward, think about all the relationships in your life, and if there's any that you feel maybe within these scenarios, like, definitely ponder the idea of what you can do to better your own life. Like, at some point you have to think about yourself more than the other person. Like that, it's like that positive selfishness we talked about in the last video. At some point you have to think positive, like think about yourself and what you can do to move forward with your life if what you're doing is not actually helping.
Yeah,
anymore.
It kind of goes back to the only one that can help yourself is yourself. And if, let's say, you have a wound if you, like, broke your leg, for instance, and meanwhile, while your leg is broken, you're trying to help your grandma clean her house and do all this stuff for her, and you're not allowing your broken leg to heal. And meanwhile, it's just making it worse, and you're making your relationship with your grandmother a lot worse. So I think there's a fine line. It goes, again, back to self-awareness. Like, having the self-awareness that, oh, yeah, maybe my leg's healed enough to be able to help other people. Maybe my mental health state is healed enough to be able to go out and help other people. But does that mean you should martyr yourself and sacrifice yourself for another person at the demise of your own mental health? Who are we to say? But at the end of the day, maybe it's finding that balance between the selfishness, which maybe it's not really selfish. Maybe it's just looking out for yourself and then helping others, or at times really helping others.
Yeah, just being able to discern the situation at hand and knowing when to continue and when to not continue.
So the problem is that you don't know if you're going to drown. If someone's drowning in that pool or that lake, we'll say, and the other person can't get air and you're the only one to save them, before going into that water, you don't know if you're going to drown with them.
Yeah, I mean,
just like in a relationship that the other person may be toxic, or maybe you might be toxic. You don't know what you're getting yourself into if you're not wise, if you're not aware of the situation beforehand. And I don't think 100% you will ever know. So
it's hard.
It's definitely a hard decision.
It's definitely hard because with a lot of relationships, whether it's a new person that you just met and they're really charismatic and you start like developing a good friendship with, or this girl or guy that you fall for because they're different than someone you've been with before. Just because they're different doesn't mean necessarily that they're going to be better or not going to make you be going down that path again where like maybe you can't actually help them again. So
you're saying like if they go on this path of like self-discovery or personal development, you don't know if
like you're saying, like you don't know what you're getting yourself into in any relationship you go into. Like there's just no way to know unless you see it through.
So Jordan Peterson talks about this in other videos, but the idea of courage, and I think mainstream media has it totally wrong. I think mainstream media thinks that courage is not having fear at all when you're doing a certain behavior, but instead he kind of flips the switch, and I kind of agree with it. He's saying that, no, you fear as all hell. Like, if there's something, a behavior or whatever it is that you're doing, a task or situation that you're faced with, you fear that monster or that problem, but you do it anyway because you're courageous, because you're mentally strong, because you know that you can handle that, you can bear that load that he always talks about.
So you're saying that people should be courageous in relationships, or you're being courageous by getting into a relationship?
I think it's a balance between wisdom and courageous. Like, if you're wise, you can assess the situation and maybe have this future idea of what kind of dangers you might be getting yourself into. And if you're wise enough in knowing that future situation, you'll never know. But if you're aware of it and you know there's going to be problems, a courageous person might be like, okay, I can handle that.
Oh,
let's do it.
I get what you're saying now. It's knowing when to use your wisdom to assess the situation and know when it's time to push away, or like even in the situation he's talking about with the lifeguard, like you jump into the pool because someone's drowning, and they literally teach you that if the person who's trying to drown, the person who's drowning, a lot of times when they're panicking, they'll try to push you down or whatever to like help them get up. And in those situations, you literally have to like kick away from them and like let them continue to drown, and like make them realize that like you're not going to help them if they keep freaking out. And so
that's a hard decision to make, because at that point, wouldn't you all, since you're taking the responsibility at that point to help them, aren't you also equally responsible for their demise, for their death?
Not if they're going to kill you. And that's what he means. Like, they literally teach you that if that person's going to pull you down, like, don't go down with them. Because, like, if you die, what's the point? Now 2 people have died instead of 1.
That's a super philosophical question.
It's hard. It's a hard decision, but, like...
But what if you can save them, even though they're pulling you down?
I mean, it usually doesn't work where the lifeguard ends up dying because they try to save someone from drowning. But like,
so we could argue to say that a lifeguard is wise in their training to be able.
Well, you
to
would
save
hope that they're wise to know what to do in a situation where someone's going to potentially be difficult with you.
So to relate this back to Jordan Peterson, I think the big thing that he's trying to do is help us gain the wisdom to be able to face life's problems. To face when people are drowning, quote unquote, to be able to assess the situation, to have the self-awareness to know themselves and what they can put themselves up to, what they're ready for, what they can bear the responsibility for.
And I think like
life things.
the lifeguarding situation is probably the extreme of this, but it gives you a good idea. Right, in that situation, like, oh, do I let that person die or not? Like, obviously that's a hard decision to be making, and at a fast pace, right? Like, you're holding your breath, all this stuff. But if you relate it back and use that as an analogy to the life situation, are you willing to let someone's toxic behaviors or toxic life
destroy your own well-being?
Right, to a point where even maybe you can't get out. Now you're lost too. Like, are you willing to take that by being so courageous that you just keep knocking at the brick wall until literally you've broken all of your limbs? Like, that's how I think about it. And like, I've been in that position where I didn't know when to just stop. And now that I know that, like, I don't do that anymore. The second someone's problems are too much for me to bear for my own self, I move away. I move away from the situation in a respectful manner too. It's like,
and that's a sign of like wisdom and strength. Like, everyone thinks that, oh, you quit, like you're the weak one, but is it really? Maybe like in the long run it'll
maybe in the short
out.
term you'll feel bad, or people will feel bad, or people will look poorly on you for like moving on from it and letting that person more or less continue to fall in their own shit. But like, at the end of the day, like, you gotta look out for yourself. I mean, unless you're willing to just fucking die for people all the time, and then like, God bless you, you know.
That also breeds resentment too. Like, if someone is that helper figure and they're like only helping someone because they think that they're gonna get something in return for that, and they don't end up getting that return, it's like, fuck, man, you just made that investment in something and you're just fucked, and you're in the hole. You're in the red.
Yeah, and like, even if you do help someone out of a toxic or low or whatever, I mean, this person's coming out of something toxic. So do you really think that they're necessarily thinking about you in the end? Like, a lot of what they're doing is they're letting you help them so that they can selfishly get to where they want to be. They're not really thinking about both parties in the situation all the time. I don't want to speak, I don't want to generalize, but in some situations, that person's really only thinking about themselves.
Well, let's make this super practical. Like, let's say someone just, again, we'll use the broken leg analogy. You are the helper and the other person is the one who's lost, and the one who's lost has that broken leg, and you as the helper is trying to help them. But at the same time, the one who's lost is only using you to be able to like walk around and get
right. And the second
get things done at their house,
the second that they're healed, they fucking bounce. They're like, I don't need you anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, I've torn my knee 3 times in the last 3 years, and I wouldn't say I'm lost. I'm maybe more just making poor decisions. But let's say I'm in a situation where every time I've done it, I'm just like broken, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this is the worst. And then I have my surgeon and my family and everyone who's trying to like encourage me to get back to that point, and then think twice about going and skiing again or skateboarding or doing something that's going to fuck me up. But then I keep doing it because, I mean, in my situation, I do it because it's something that I'm super passionate about. But now I'm in a situation where it's my 3rd time around, and I have to realize that like, I can't keep doing this because, one, I'm letting people be at expense to me, like my surgeon, which he's getting paid to do that. It's like, whatever. But like,
family, friends.
Right. Family and friends who I have by no means cut off. And
potential
then,
kids.
Right. Like, I've never like cut off and been like, oh, the second I'm healed, like, see ya. But someone could be in my situation and do that and like keep like hurting themselves and not listening to anyone and just continue to like abusively and selfishly use people to help them get to that point.
We could compare your situation with what Jordan Peterson's talking about. So like you with skiing, going off these big air jumps, being at risk of hurting yourself, breaking your leg. So same situation with like the person drowning. So think of like that big mountain or that big jump that you're going off of, being that person that's drowning, right? Does that make sense?
No.
So compare the two things. Like someone who's drowning in the water, and compare that to that potential risk involved in hurting yourself when you go off
by going off the jump. Am I willing to take that risk with the potential of...
And someone who is professional or someone who is advanced in freestyle skiing would have more wisdom and better assessment skills as far as like what their limits are, what they can push themselves into doing, because they practiced it for like 10,000 hours or whatever. Where
I definitely haven't, so...
But also you've gotten into freak accidents. So that's the thing, like if that person's drowning and you are a lifeguard and you've done it 10,000 times, that one time could be that freak accident that brings you down with them. Yeah. And so you never know for sure, but at the same time you can increase your odds by having more practice, more mastery over whatever it is that you're getting yourself into. Even relationships, that takes
Yeah.
practice.
So yeah, I guess
Experience.
like if anything, just be more aware of the situations, the environments, the relationships you're in, and think twice about where you're at in a relationship with someone that maybe is toxic or you're trying to help them.
And that comes along, like, I think the reason why they say the old man is wise is because the only way you can get better at assessing life experiences is either mulling it over in your head 10,000 times, but ultimately you have to experience it yourself. And the old man archetype has had life experience, and at the end of the day, they've done it, and they know what they can and can't handle.